Guys, Chris here from Carolette Miniature Horses. Want to say welcome, good morning. As you can see, it's a little overcast today, and I am letting the minis just stay out in the front ring here and graze a little bit longer. We have started keeping them out of this area except for the morning hours. So usually I come and I let them into this area around 7:30 or so in the morning. And by 10, most days, I'm bringing Clover, our little gray guy, off in the distance there. I bring him into the barnyard so that he can be in a dry lot. We're trying to still restrict the amount of grass that he is eating. He's doing well, so we haven't had to completely restrict everything, but we're keeping a close eye on him. But I just want to let you know that everything really is greening up behind me, even this area here where I was spreading manure a few weeks ago, trying to help kind of amend and build up the soil that was just really red clay for the most part. So you can see even that is really beginning to green up. So, you know, spring has sprung. It's now early April. And I just want to kind of show you the field behind me because I'm real pleased with the amount of grass that we're beginning to get. Because half of the ring was just nothing but red clay. So that's a good sign. But again, it means we have to be extra careful about the amount of grass and the sugars that the horses, these little guys, are getting because they are minis and they do not need as much as, say, a full-size horse. So we're keeping a close eye on everyone. But good news, there's lots of good green grass popping up. Showing you around the back field now, you can see there's a little bit of hay in the distance, so the horses did not clean up, but for the most part they've been eating it. We had been watching the hay real closely. You might see another pile in the back here. We had a few bales that weren't in the best of shape and the horses weren't too keen on eating it, so I was overfeeding them hay so they could really pick through it and discern what was best. But it seems like the hay that we're now into is more reliably quality, so that's good. Here's some old stemmy hay that's been left over. There are remnants of that all throughout this back field. So I plan on getting a rake here in the near future, if not today, one day soon. That's a fresh pile there, but going ahead and just raking up all of that yellow stemmy hay and removing it, maybe adding it to the compost or some other area, but it doesn't need to be back here. It takes a long time for this real tough stuff to break down. I'm currently in the barnyard here with Clover. I've just brought him in and he's eating one of several piles of hay here. I've taken one flake and split it into several little piles for him. But we bring Clover in mid-morning every day to try to limit the amount of grass. And I'm sure you've probably heard me mention that before. I may have even said it earlier in this video as well, but we're bringing him off the grass to limit because he did founder a few years ago. And prior to coming here to Carolette, he was on a pretty strict dry lot in a kind of a wooded dry lot area. And so we made the decision, his owners and we made the decision to go ahead and see if he was able to stay comfortable on minimal to moderate grass. And I feel that's sort of what we have here at Carolette. You know, as I turn here, you can see the back field behind me. You know, it has some grass, it is a little green, but by no means is it lush. And so we are just monitoring him closely and we are limiting the amount of grass that he is eating, which is why he comes in during the daytime hours. That's what we're doing right now with our dry lot situation. Trying to duck out of the wind here. The wind is picking up just a little. So with the grasses and the sugars, I think a lot of you have probably heard me mention this with my other videos and our minis. Perhaps you've heard other people, or perhaps you've experienced horses who have a tendency to become liminitic or to founder even. The grasses, spring grasses and fall grasses, are what we need to be especially mindful of. And the sugars spike during the daytime hours, and that is because of photosynthesis. So when the sun comes out in the morning, after it's been up in the sky for a few hours, the grasses, after taking in the sunlight, begin to then produce the sugars. And that's what actually kind of sustains the plant, right? So with horses, in a perfect world, if you have a horse who is really sensitive, you would want to keep them off the grass, certainly during the afternoon hours and even into the evening hours we've read that the sugars in the grass, there's a fly around me, the sugars in the grasses can remain quite elevated even until, midnight or as late as 3 o'clock in the morning. So that's a little trickier, right, to be turning your horse out quite that late. So what we're starting off with our friend Clover here, like I mentioned, we are just beginning by limiting the amount of grass that he would otherwise be grazing on if he stayed out with the rest of the herd. And if it looks like he becomes the least bit sensitive, we will modify what we're doing. And the next step would probably be to bring him in around lunchtime and to then just keep him up in the barnyard here until overnight. And then just turn him out first thing in the morning when I get up for a couple of hours. And I would hate to do that, but if that's what he needs, that's what we'll do. But right now, I'm happy to report that he's doing really well with just this modification of his grazing hours. So far so good. We'll keep you posted. But again, the sugars in the grass spike during the daytime when the sun's been high in the sky due to photosynthesis, and the sugars remain quite high until the sun has been down for several hours. So even though I turn Clover out in the evening, I am full aware that the sugar content is still relatively high, so we just have to be extra cautious. I have just finished up my morning chores here at the barn. Clover's in the paddock. We've picked everything. Sweetheart's been fed. And now as I head back to the house for a little, I am going to hop into the garden and check on our plants. We planted several things a couple of weeks back, and we just returned home from our first camping trip the other day. So we are keeping a close eye on the plants. We've uncovered them, and so far they're doing pretty well. But let me go take a closer check. Here on the end, we have our broccoli plants. They're looking good. And then we have our cauliflower here in the middle. They're standing up nice and strong, most of them. A few of the little ones on the end, I told you the other day, were a little small to begin with. They're still living, but they're still quite small in comparison to some of their counterparts there. And then beside the cauliflower, we have one more row of cauliflower here. And then we move on to our cabbages. Our cabbages are doing well. They like the cool weather. Really, all of these plants are cool weather plants. And then on the very end, we have some Brussels sprouts. And they look like they have done some good growing while we were out of town for a few days. We had covered everything with buckets and garden cloth just to protect it from a few cold nights we had. And then on the back of the garden there, we have our lettuce. And those plants seem to be doing all right. Everything takes a little bit of a hit when it first goes into the ground, but they're rebounding nicely, I think. Right now, we are taking a look at our cabbage plants, and just wanted to kind of show you here how the hardier plants are up towards the middle area of the garden. And then down here on the end, I have some really small little guys right here. I've mentioned this to you before, but I tend to put our smaller plants that are a little less likely to really be our high producers at the edge of the garden. And that way, the hardier, healthier plants are towards the middle, where when we do have to cover them, they're the most protected from the cold. And generally speaking, I'd say the watering and the ground is the best in the middle. As you get down here close to where I am, the ground does sort of fall off a bit, and sometimes we get a little more like water runoff. So these plants down here on the end are not the strongest to begin with, and I am aware that we might lose some of these little guys, but all in all, our cabbage plot here is looking pretty good. Trying to just water the plant and not so much the ground around them. It helps with some of this early weed control. You know, weeding your garden, of course, is just inevitable, but we do what we can to try to limit the amount of extra weeds and such that grow around our plants. And by watering the plant and not the ground, that's just sort of the first step. Careful watering, you know, as best you can. That's why we don't use a hose, though. If you use a hose, you just end up spraying pretty much everything near and far to the plants. And the years when we have done more watering with a hose, we have found that the weeds are just as hardy and fast growing as the garden plants. So we have moved on to hand watering as best we can. You can see here, these were 3, 1, 2, and 3. There's not much left there. These were 3 of the smallest, least healthy Brussels sprouts that we planted before our trip. We covered them with buckets as well as the garden cloth. But these on the end here certainly are not looking great. 2 of the 3 are probably not going to make it. But the rest of our Brussels sprouts seem to be doing pretty well. So that's a good sign. But again, you know, we know that every year we're going to lose a few plants. And it looks like we've probably got at least 2 Brussels sprouts here that are likely not going to make it. It's always sad. It might sound a little silly, but my husband and I, we kind of joke, like, you know, these plants, they're kind of like our little babies, you know, especially for him because he starts them from seed indoors, and we really tend them for several weeks, if not months, before they're big enough to even just come out to the garden proper. So, you know, it's always sad when we lose a few little guys like we have here, our Brussels sprouts, and there's maybe a couple of broccoli plants and a cauliflower or 2 that are probably not going to make it. But by and large, the garden is doing really well, and that's to be expected. So, you know, keep up the good work, I guess, right? You know, you can't save them all, but we try. So I was telling you, I'm watering our potatoes here. Let's see, I can't find myself and the potatoes in the camera here. Take my word for it, I am watering the potatoes. I have just finished watering the potatoes behind me. We will soon have 2 rows of potatoes popping up. I don't see any signs of the plants just yet, but we did plant them back around St. Patrick's Day, so the middle of March, and it's now the first week in April. So we should be seeing them real soon. You know, they've been underground for a couple of weeks now, and the potatoes had little eyes on them already that were beginning to sprout. So with a good water today and with the warmer temperatures tomorrow and the next few days are going to be up in the 80s. Today's a little cooler. It's maybe 60-some degrees right now. It's a little overcast, but once it warms up for the next few days and with some continued watering, I hope we'll soon have some signs of potatoes. That does make it easier to water as well once they pop up, because then you can actually see where the plants are. Right now I'm kind of going somewhat blind, but I do have little stakes marking the ends of my rows. I do that when I plant things that I can't see, so that again, hopefully I can water where the plants are or where the seeds are and not just aimlessly water around them. So fingers crossed we see some plants soon. As I prepare to step away from the garden, I just gave our sugar snap peas a little water, and you can see some of the plants, like this larger one here, are already beginning to climb nice and tall and weave their way through the fencing. Sometimes I help to kind of push them through the fencing if they need a little encouragement, but for the most part they grab a hold real well themselves. You can see right here, I have on the right and the left hand side of my screen 2 larger, more mature sugar snap pea plants. Those were most likely from the first planting I did in the middle to late part of February. And then a few weeks later, when I only saw about 10 plants coming up, I went back and I overseeded. And I suspect that's what these are here. These are the smaller plants that are a little younger. But if you look along the fence line, I do have several of these smaller plants. Here's another one coming up. And so they will help to flesh out our sugar snap pea crop. So that's a very good sign. So happy to see that. We should have some good sugar snaps by June. So I've just finished up the garden. I'm gonna go ahead and latch everything here. Gonna head to the house, get some lunch, and then I'll come back this afternoon and do some work with the horses. I want to groom everyone, do good tick checks. We're finding a lot of ticks, so I'm now kind of on this mission of trying to find how to combat ticks. We will begin spraying the horses with some fly spray, and that should help a little, but the ticks are really, really hardcore this early in the spring, which is unusual. You may have wondered what this funny looking bed is with the cinder blocks around it. This is our asparagus bed, and you can see we started weeding it a little on this end the other day. There's a lot more to do. This is usually quite an undertaking in the spring. We weed it really, really well, and then we just sort of let it do its thing. You know, the asparagus will pop up, it'll finish its life cycle, and then we really let it all die back, and then we let it rest through the winter and come back in the spring and weed again. So it's that time. Let me get started. I started weeding the asparagus bed here some more, but I'm finding that the weeds have really taken hold quite strong into the soil, and so I'm going to wait until after we get a really good rain to soak everything, and then the weeds should pull up better along with their roots. You know, if I just pull them now and they snap off, they're just gonna grow like wildfire. So I'm gonna stop weeding the asparagus bed now. We should have some rain coming our way in the next couple of days, and then I'll try again later this weekend and see if I don't have a little more luck. Forgive the manure that I've added to our winter compost pile and these white coffee filters, but I'm just walking by and I'm noticing that we have some little volunteer plants. I'm gonna guess they might be cucumbers. I see a few more hiding over there by those eggshells. And that's just one of the fun little things about having a random wild compost pile like this. In the summer we have a compost tumbler, but in the winter months we just toss everything here into this compost bin. It's not the prettiest, but it's a place to put stuff in the winter, keeps things from blowing around, like the coffee filters. They will begin to break down, but they take a while. So, but that was exciting just to see what looks like some of our early cucumbers popping up. I'll have to keep an eye on them, but I think that's what they are. You can see here in the barnyard just how much shedding the horses did today. You know, Clover had all the gray hairs, and then the orangish brown hairs are from a mixture of Shenanigans and Sweetheart, and then there's some darker brown from Rockstar and Snuggles. The two of them did the least amount of shedding though, but got a lot of good hair off, and it's just fun to kind of see all of the different colors in the barnyard. So one more thing I wanted to share about today that I did, it was a first, so it was kind of exciting. I took the fly spray down to the barn and I fly sprayed our minis for the first time, or I tried to fly spray the minis for the first time. A couple of them acted like they had never seen fly spray before and thought I was crazy for wanting to put it on them. And a couple of them were pretty great, but you know, the star of the day was Rockstar. He stood like a champ, totally still, more than happy for me to spray him. The big surprise was Sweetheart. I thought for sure, being the oldest and just being super solid with everything else that we've asked her to do or tried to do with her, she's been just really, really steady. And so I thought for sure that she would stand there, not move a muscle. I was wrong. She wanted nothing to do with me or the fly spray in my hand. Again, we'll work on it, not a big deal. And the others kind of fell somewhere in the middle. You know, Clover didn't want to have anything to do with me or the fly spray. I don't have any idea what his history has been with fly spray. I imagine he's been sprayed, but He was not really interested. Shenanigans and Snuggles were both inquisitive. They wanted to come up and sniff the fly spray and kind of check it out, but they were both pretty hesitant when I went to spray them. I got a little bit on them, and they were able to like come back and sniff the bottle again and let me scratch them. And so we have a lot of work to do. Um, but Rockstar was fantastic. He was the champ today. So wanted to share that because it was a first. This first year with the minis is full of firsts, and today was one of them, and I just wanted to share that. Thanks for joining me today. It was a pretty busy day here on the farm. I didn't go anywhere, which is nice. Some days I feel I'm constantly running errands or stepping off the farm to do this or to do that. So it was nice to have a day that was uninterrupted. Like you saw, I was able to do a little gardening, and I tried weeding the asparagus bed, but it's not quite ready. It needs to have a good soaking rain, and then I should be able to weed that better. And then following that, I went down to the barn. I did groom everyone, and I worked with 3 of the 5 minis in the ring on some of our groundwork and our obstacle type stuff. So it was a very good day all in all. And tomorrow I should have a student coming to help me. This is an older 4-H student that I work with, and she's hoping to take one of our minis to the State 4-H Horse Show this fall. So she's going to come over tomorrow afternoon, and it should be nice and warm and sunny. And we will then do just, our regular tick checks and grooming, and we'll do some more handling and some more ring work. But what I'm really hoping to do tomorrow with the nice warm weather as well is go ahead and scrub everyone's legs, their chest and their legs. Because of the ticks that we've been finding a lot of, the horses are getting really itchy and kind of some little scabby spots on their legs and their chest area. So tomorrow we're gonna make good use of extra hands, and we are gonna go ahead and try to scrub everyone's legs. So that's what's in store for tomorrow. But again, thank you for joining us today. Hope you enjoyed following us around, and hope you check back soon. So talk to you later. Bye, guys.